Hey there guys, this is a bit of a first look. I don't usually do these, but there's been a bit of interest in this one and it's quite a new knife. So if you're waiting on some videos to come out to help temper your resolve as to buy one or not buy one or whatever, then I hope this is of some help. This is the Viper Knives Belone, B-E-L-O-N-E, Belone, Bell One, you know, all sorts of ways I'm sure of saying it. What I liked about this was that it had a nice thin silhouette. So I like knives that are quite narrow this way because they fit in often pen pockets of pants. And this is indeed a very thin knife. I also like that it's an M390 steel and it is a Jesper Voxnaes design. And he's one of my favorite designers. I like his stuff. I like the designers that you can look and see. You can pick their knives straight away. You can sort of see their curves or whatever it is. Ken Onion is one, Ernest Emerson is one. And you're looking at another great Vox design. Here's the Pilar, or the Pilar or Pilar. Again, you consider, I see the similarities in here. I see the things that he likes, obviously, in his knife. Just the circles and the angles and things. So anyway, that was what did it for me as well. And yeah, some good M390 blade steel, which I hope is done well. We will find out. So this one is made by Viper. My only previous Viper knives was the Viper Keeper, which was a bit of a weird one. It was like a stiletto style, somewhat flipper knife that had some pretty soft D2 in it that I tested. Could never quite get it to hold an edge for much longer or anywhere near what other D2s did for me, even with the same edges. So that was an interesting little design there. I noticed they haven't changed their boxes, you're still getting this same box. But yeah, I didn't want to shut a company out just because one experience. I'm sure they're completely competent, so we'll see how this one goes. Some size comparisons. Let's go through a rainbow of other companies' knives, shall we? I always fall into the trap of just having the same old knives. So anyway, here's a Benchmade 940. You see it's about the same size and even about the same shape, you know, same footprint in your pocket anyway. Here is the WE Knives crossed with Mastrop Keen. Also a similar size, similar length knife, I guess. Got a bit more bulk in it in all the other ways. Let's look at it next to an Ontario Rat number 2. Sorry, an Ontario Rat number 1. Buddy Dave's with its grind and degrees and you know, finish written on the blade there for me to test when I get around to doing more testing. I've got a Paramilitary 2. There we go. So a little bit shorter than the PM2, but only by about 1/4 of an inch. And then my Emerson A100, which is just a little bit bigger again as well. So looking at the blade, it's kind of like a bit of an old style, kind of trapper style blade really, or a Canadian belt knife, just a high belly knife. So a knife that you would generally associate with food or hunting, that sort of thing. It's generally how I associate these kind of patterns. Really cool to see it on quite a sort of a modern looking handle there. Really interesting composition there. Just in terms of blade thickness, you see it's right on the 3mm, so it's a little bit thinner than the thickest part of a Paramilitary, but it's got less of less graduation down to being quite thin. So it's a distal taper is what I'm looking for. So it's got less of that. But it seems to be either flat or very subtly hollow ground. It seems to be quite thin at the edge. Not, you know, nothing like, say, this Keen, which is, you know, does feel a little bit thinner. But then, you know, not as thick as this Benchmade here, so you know, somewhere about in the middle. Similar-ish to maybe how the rats come from the factory. Kind of how it feels. It came from the factory very, very sharp. I was using it to cut some threads and things before for the wife. She was doing some sewing just while watching The Walking Dead. Had some stuff on her lap, and it was just going boop through the threads, doing really, really well. So it's come with a pretty keen factory edge too. So looking at the materials, you've got titanium, as I said, satin finished M390 steel. It's an interesting layout. I guess you could say it's a liner lock, but really only by virtue of them putting these extra very thin slabs of titanium on the outside. Really, these liners are about 2.5mm thick. They're almost as thick as the blade themselves. So for all intents and purposes, it would be a frame lock just with a bit of a cover over it, which I think does look pretty cool. These covers have like these dots drilled out to make them, you know, a bit more artistic and whatnot. And yeah, it's a pretty rugged liner lock or frame lock, whatever you want to call it. It's titanium with no extra sort of you know, striker face protection or whatever, striker block safety. That's a gun term. It doesn't have, I always forget what it's called. It doesn't have an interface, so it's just titanium, but it's got minimal stick, like nothing that's actually an effort. It just makes a bit of a sound. That's all. But it doesn't feel like, say, my Emerson feels, where you have to actually overcome some lock stick to get it open. This is gradually easing up for those who are keeping tabs. And also, yes, Nylotron washers on that one. Sorry, everyone. Said Bronze Fossil. So yeah, another feature of it is a very low profile flipper. Another thing I really do like. And it flips very, very well because it's on a thrust bearing system, whatever that means. I take it it's just ball bearings in a ring that makes it open quite smooth. It doesn't drop shut or anything like that. It's, you have to kind of plop it shut, which is fine. Give it a bit of a plop, you know how it is. So yeah, it seems like a very well constructed and well made knife. It came very well centered. What the keeper was always for me, I could catch my finger on it when I ran my finger up like that. On the Viper Keeper, the tip didn't sit deep enough into the handle slabs, which was a bit of a fatal flaw for me. This one is fine like that. If you really wanted to, you could really press your finger and twist it around and maybe give yourself a slight nick right to the edge of your callus, but no worse than many other knives, so that's totally fine with me. All in all, it's a really handsome piece. In terms of immediate problems, there is an issue with the clip that I can already tell. I'm probably just going to take this screw out because, as you see, it really is a catching point when anything thicker than silky boxer shorts accommodates this knife in pocket. So that is something that I'm not sure if that screw is essential. You could probably just fill and plug it. Maybe you could take the screw out or just wear the head down. I'm not sure, but I'll use it as sold for the review period, but I think in the end that screw might have to just go because it's already in my pocket, just a little bit annoying pulling past that catching point every time. It's an okay enough clip going into the pocket. It's got enough ramp and everything on it, but once it gets to this point, it's a bit of a push past and it's a bit of extra sauce in your pull as well to get it out. So there's that as well. So yeah, overall though, I'm pretty happy with it apart from that. Ergonomically, it's fine. It fits my hand well, but as with any risk of having, finger indentations and things, may not fit yours as well. I've got a pretty fat index finger because it's all calloused up from my rope cutting. And it seems to fit fine there. And it does seem there's a second grip that's just kind of choking up like this, making use of this jimping on the back here of that crown spine, very nicely crowned spine, by the way. You can grab it like this, and that's perfectly comfortable for small cuts. Obviously, nothing where you're going to be stabbing or anything like that because you lose this purchase that the finger groove in the handle gives you. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it so far. I do like it so far, and it's a very me knife. It's not super small, but it's nice and thin. As long as it cuts good, I'm going to be pretty happy with it. As long as they're M390 steel, which they say is 60 to 61 on the Rockwell, that should be okay. That should make some decent performance. Just some general specs on it. Overall, it's 200 millimeters long. That's 7 7/8 of an inch. The blade is 85 millimeters long, 3 1/3 of an inch. The weight, well, they list these on the site as all being the same weight, whether you get CF, whether you get anything. I struggle to believe that. So yeah, they're right. It's 89 grams. That's what it says on the website. So that's cool, I guess. 89 grams is 3.1 ounces. So you're looking at a pretty lightweight, pretty thin little knife that does seem to have, they've put a little bit of extra vavoom into the blade there to make it a little bit taller. So it hopefully should be a little bit slicier. So there's that. But one last thing, it's a virgin factory edge. You know what we like to with virgins around here, don't we? Hey, boys, hey. Yeah, we take them to the knife lab and we see how much rope they cut. What do you think I was going to say? Alrighty, so the Knife Lab M390 steel should do pretty well. I don't know what this factory edge is like. It does cut a held sheet of paper very well from the box, but then there's often intricacies that I can't see with my naked eye. I would wager the degrees would be about 18 or so per side. It's pretty thin blade behind the edge there, and there's a visible apex, so don't know. I don't know what ballpark to expect. I would hope about 300 at least with a factory edge, but we will see, won't we? Viper have had a weird knife, or I've had a weird knife from them before, in that keeper with D2 that just wouldn't get sharp. So let's just see how much twisted sisal rope it cuts before it no longer bites in and slices a held piece of paper. Let's get into it. So it started to get definitely like notably duller at about the 250 mark. It was really touch and go. Probably could have stopped it there, but it dragged itself through to 275 to the point where every single time it just wasn't biting in. You know, it's still not a dull edge by any sense. So right at the bottom, still very sharp. It's just, yeah, the bit I'm testing, which is kind of this belly part here, just kind of like has a nick and then sends it into more of a tearing cut. So yeah, that's what it is, about what I would expect. So that's the Viper first impressions. The only other thing was it wasn't the most comfortable knife to do this cut test with which is obviously a very sort of extraordinary task to be doing with a obviously gentleman styled flipper pocket knife. But this standard grip does seem absolutely fine. It's just not the grip that I use because you get too many knuckles in the way on the board, so I have to kind of like hold it to the side like this so there's more clearance here. So that's why I do that. But yeah, overall my opinions of the knife, yeah, relatively positive. I think I like the design a whole lot. Clip, yeah, the steel, I mean the factory edge was decent. That's about what you get with most people. Usually when I sharpen things it gets a fair improvement on the factory edge. Because I use those like the stones where you get a nice polish and stuff. So I'll probably do a full review follow-up with this knife in a month or so's time and show you how it's actually going. But right now, impressions do seem good, apart from maybe that little pocket clip screw interface problem there. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And remember guys, if you got a problem, you can't settle in a Knife Lab, settle it.